Welcome back. So, the title of this mini lecture is The Second World War in Europe from 1944 to 1945. Now, we're going to talk about 5 things that you should be thinking about or that you should understand as you go to learn more and read more about this topic because it's very complex and there's a lot to know. First thing that we should know about Normandy campaign. All right, the Normandy campaign. Many of us have seen films related to D-Day, or TV shows or documentaries related to D-Day, the invasion of Normandy by the Allies on June 6, 1944. But for the next couple of months, the Allies are going to be engaged in a very slow process to advance their line through France to eventually retake Paris to try to get through France and into Germany. That process took a lot longer than what the Allies had anticipated. And it really tells us a lot about the nature of how war is getting fought in 1944, the civilian population in France, the treatment of individuals. So again, it can tell us a lot about the nature of war fighting and about the nature of World War II overall. Secondly, Market Garden. Okay, Market Garden. So, Operation Market Garden, spoilers, didn't work. Okay. Operation Market Garden was partly conceived of by Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, a British general, and the idea was to land paratroopers at different cities over eventually the Rhine River and have armored forces and allied forces basically go and pick them up. Now, the assumption was that you would kind of leapfrog over where the Allies were having a hard time busting through. And the thing was really predicated on speed. It was predicated on a lack of defense on the part of the Germans. And it was predicated on the Allied sort of logistical chain being able to kind of keep the pace going. Well, most of those things broke down. And the sort of friction that exists in war meant that Market Garden was an abject failure. Now, we've seen depictions of Market Garden in the last 40, 50 years in film, in A Bridge Too Far. We've seen it in the Band of Brothers series. They devote some time to this. And even in those, although, Hollywood isn't history and history isn't Hollywood, they do spend a lot of time questioning sort of the nature of that particular operation. Thirdly, the Battle of the Bulge. All right, the Battle of the Bulge. Also famed in most TV shows and films that you're going to see, the Battle of the Bulge was a fairly significant event. So this occurs in December into January 1944, 1945. Basically, Germany was on its heels. Hitler thought that one last major offensive could help split the Americans and the British. It could help the Germans recapture the port of Antwerp, and they might be able to develop some kind of negotiated peace, some kind of negotiated settlement. Now, this is, again, the largest battle that the United States Army has ever been a part of. So it was a massive undertaking. You have a number of units, American units that surrender, a number that are overrun and are going to have to retreat. You're going to have Patton's army kind of come in as well to assist. This is of course, the era of the 101st Airborne, and they're being surrounded at Bastogne, and all of this. So the Allies do eventually close the bulge, right? So the line bulged out, the Allies close it, but not without a significant amount of casualties and a very, very, very difficult process. But it was the flexibility of the Allies and their logistical supply chains that are going to be able to kind of help them to emerge successful with this particular battle. Fourthly, war in the East. All right, we're naturally in this country and in the West very prideful about what we did against the Germans, what we did against the Nazis in World War II. What we need to also understand is that we had some help. Okay, we had some help. It doesn't mean that we're, agents of communist Russia by saying this or anything like that. But the majority of German casualties in World War II were caused by the Russians and not by the Americans. So it is the ground war in the East, not just, Stalingrad, but the entirety of that war in the East that is a central point for much of this war. And it is important for us to understand that. Fifthly, VE Day. VE Day. So VE Day, victory in Europe, May 8th, 1945. So you can't really imagine it, right? It's not something that any of us have really ever experienced unless you were around then. And you have to consider how long Europe had been at war, how long the world had been at war. When had the war started, right? For the Americans, it was December 7th. But what if you're British? What if you're Jewish and you lived in Germany? May 8th, 1945 was a day of utter euphoria. All right. Thanks so much.